Hey, what's going on everyone? Jeremy here with another video. You may have heard it already, but Theta was awarded their 5th patent approval, and it has to do with securing the edge network. We're going to talk about it today. Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy, and if you want to follow along my journey as I build wealth for my family, then subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing. Remember, none of this is intended to be financial advice. I am merely a guy sitting in front of a computer talking to a camera. But let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so if you have been on the Theta website recently, thetatoken.org, this is just a public service announcement. If you're ever going to log into the web wallet, make sure you're at thetatoken.org. There are many scam websites out there that try to mimic the main Theta website, so keep that in mind. And also, Theta's not giving away free tokens. If you see any of these scams about logging in or verifying your C phrase and then you can get all these free tokens, it's not Theta, so don't do that or you'll lose everything. Okay, so you go to the Theta website and go to their news tab. Just yesterday, July 7th, there was an announcement that Theta was awarded patent approval for something called preventing denial of service attacks in decentralized edge network. Now, obviously, if you heard about the last patent using NFTs for digital rights management, Theta is looking to get into streaming content for providers like Netflix and movie studios and other people who want to control the rights to their copyrighted content. And if you haven't seen that video, I will link it up here. You can go check out their last patent and how that last patent is huge for what they're looking to do. But this one goes hand in hand. Basically, what it is a process for handling what's called denial of service attacks, or DOS it's often called. And this is basically where a malicious person or computer would basically try to overwhelm the network by just making too many requests. So just over and over and over and over again, just trying to basically overwhelm the server, or in this case, in the case of Theta, overwhelm the edge node, which would be somebody running edge node on their computer, which is actually what provides the streams to the entire network. And so essentially what they have done is they have created this patent. Here's the number: preventing denial of service attacks in decentralized edge networks using verifiable delay functions. Okay, so that's a mouthful. But essentially what a verifiable delay function is, we scroll down here a little bit. Here's the patent information. This is how the typical, what do they call this? Using VDF to defend against attack in client-server networks. Okay, so VDF, or verifiable delay functions, are not new. They have been used in the typical client-server capacity for a while now. Essentially, let's see if I can find where it's at and describes what it does. All right, so a VDF, or verifiable delay function, is used in client-server networks, fully decentralized peer-to-peer networks, as well as hybrid networks. And essentially it says if a server detects that a client is issuing requests at, for example, a higher than normal frequency, the server can issue a VDF puzzle with a random seed, sometimes called a challenge, to the client. So basically the server's listening and they're getting all these normal requests, and then all of a sudden they get a client that's just requesting a ton of data or a ton of requests over a short period of time. They say, whoa, this isn't right. Here, and they send back essentially a math problem that they have to do. But that math problem has a solution or a seed that has to be calculated into and returned back. And so basically what that does is it drops every other request that that client is making. So maybe they're saying, hey, give me 50 copies of a certain video. I want to start a stream 50 copies over and over and over and over again. They say, hold your horses, do this math problem, and your next request has to provide the answer to that question. And then the follow-up, they will send another problem for them to complete, and the next request has to have the answer to that. So it's sort of basically, instead of just being able to bombard the network with requests, it basically puts them in a sequence and says, I'm going to process your request, but you have to do these problems each time, and you don't know what the problem is until I reply back to you. So you can't stack them up with a huge amount of requests, because the next request has to have data from the last request. And so it basically just sort of puts the brakes on it And if they're not willing to do that, then it just never gets to the other requests and they just sort of get dropped or dumped. And so there's other methods to try to handle this. Document here says the advantage of using VDF over proof of work is that VDF computation is not parallelized. And so there's other ways that people have tried to sort of solve this problem using proof of work. The problem with that is because they're not sequential, if they have a large computing network, they could actually solve the problems very fast. So proof of work typically deals with very complex, difficult to solve problems that require a large amount of computing power. And so if you had a huge network, you could basically still bombard the network because you can solve those problems fast because you've got 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 computers that are helping you solve the problem. With VDF, it doesn't matter how much you have because it's sequential. You have to use the data from the last request for the next request. So it sort of really puts a halt on things. Let's use an MMA fight as an example. Let's say the UFC starts broadcasting their fights over the Theta network, and obviously you purchase an NFT to get access to that stream, and the stream begins. So these are all the people that have bought an NFT and they start viewing the stream, which is coming from this cache or peer node. That stream's going out. Well, this guy tries to just bombard this cacher node, which would essentially overwhelm it and would keep it from being able to send or transmit that stream to these other nodes. That's essentially what they're defending against. Basically, this cacher node is going to say, whoa, wait a second, here, solve the math problem and then come back to me. It really is an elegant solution to a problem. Big shout out to the patrons that really make this channel possible. Consider joining the Patreon if you want to gain access to some extra content and really just support the channel. There is a link in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you want to see the video on the last patent that Theta was awarded, you can go check that out. It's starting right over here. Click on that. I'll see you over there.